Listen, back in 1984, one of the greatest movies that ever was made came out, a movie called Karate Kid. And in that movie, it displays a problem that was turned around to make progress. Um, there was a young man named Daniel in the movie, and he was bullied by some neighborhood hooligans or whatever you want to call them, and they bullied him, and he it had enough, and so he goes and he seeks out a karate expert by the name of Mr. Miyagi, and he tells Mr. Miyagi his situation. Mr. Miyagi agrees to train him on how to fight back using karate under certain circumstances. And so he agrees, and Mr. Miyagi tells him, show up on this particular day and we'll get started with the training. And when he shows up, he's expecting Mr. Miyagi to show him all of these terrific karate moves and chops and slices and all of that kind of stuff. But much to his chagrin, Mr. Miyagi doesn't teach him any karate moves, but he sends him out into the yard and tells him to wax cars. And he tells him to wax cars in a particular way, and he tells him to, the wax on and then the wax off, moving his hands a certain way to put the wax on, moving his hands another way to take the wax off. And he did that for quite some time. And then Mr. Miyagi told him, now I need you to paint the fence. And so he goes out and he paints the fence, and Mr. Miyagi tells him how to paint the fence a certain way, how to move his hand up and down in a certain motion. And little Daniel, he's starting to get upset because he said, I didn't sign up to basically to do your yard work, clean your cars and all that kind of stuff. He said, I came to learn karate because I've been bullied. I got a problem. And so to kind of make a long story short, he begins to train him eventually and get him ready for a tournament. And some of those people that bullied him are some of the people he met in the tournament. And in the pivotal moment, when Daniel seemed to be losing the battle, Mr. Miyagi revealed his grand plan. And as Daniel was being attacked, he yelled to Daniel, wax on. And he moved his hand just as he would wax in that car. And as he moved his hand, it blocked the blow from the enemy. And he said, wax off. And he moved his other hand and paint the fence. He formed the position that he would had when he was painting the fence. And he won the battle because of those seemingly insignificant moves that he didn't even want to learn. And so what I'm saying by all of this is he came to Mr. Miyagi with the problem, and it seemed like Mr. Miyagi only gave him more problems. But in the long run, those things that seemed like a problem caused him to be a champion karate fighter. And, in life, listen, as believers, you're going to have some problems. The Bible says that they that live godly shall suffer persecution. Get it out of your head that everybody's going to like you. Get it out of your head that everything's going to go your way. Even Jesus, he said foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Basically, Jesus said, I'm homeless. Peter said, silver and gold have we none, but such as I have, I give unto you. Just because you're saved don't mean you ain't going to have problems. But God made us a promise that he will cause our problems to be our progress. God will take your problems and make them your progress. And how do I know? Because if you look at Genesis chapter 50, around verse 20, it says this, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Joseph said, you intended this for bad, but God intended it for good. In other words, you thought it was going to be a problem, but God made it my progress. God used the problem that you tossed in my way to elevate me to a place where I can be a blessing to other people. Now you got to hear me on this, because who is he talking to? Joseph is talking to his brothers. But what did his brothers do? His brothers were jealous because Joseph had a vision. Joseph had a dream that they would basically bow down to him. And that ticked them off. That made them mad. And sometimes you have an aspirations and dreams are going to tick folks off. People you think is in your corner, brothers and sisters and co-workers and people at your church. But when you get a vision or a dream, it's going to tick some folks off. And so it ticked off Joseph's brothers, and they conspired against him, and they took him, and they basically, make a long story short, they sold him into slavery and told their father he was dead. And when he was sold into slavery, he was taken down to Egypt as a slave. And eventually, the hand of God was on him, and he rose to the top. He rose and he rose and he rose until he was second in command of Egypt. And there came a famine in the land. And when the famine came, guess who was hungry? Joseph and Joseph's brothers, rather, and their father were back, and they were hungry because they were in the famine. So they came down to Egypt. Oh my God, to get some food. And when they came to get the food, guess who was in charge? That old brother Joseph that they had told their father had been dead. God has elevated him. And so he doesn't hold any grudges against them. He actually blesses them. And when their father dies, they think that now he's going to really get us. He's going to show us. But he doesn't do anything spiteful. And that's where we pick up here in chapter 50. This is where Joseph said, you intended it for my bad. You had plans to destroy me. You had plans to take me out. You had plans to cause me problems. You had plans to make me fail. If you had, but I want to congratulate you, because if you had not done what you've done, I wouldn't be where I am. And God has used the things you meant for my bad to be for my good. If you had not been jealous of me, then you'd have never would have sold me into slavery. If you had not sold me into slavery, I never would have made it to Egypt. If I had not made it to Egypt, I never would have been thrown into prison. If I had not been thrown into prison, I never would have met the king's butler and the baker. If I had not met the king's butler and baker, then I never would have been able to interpret the dream that brought me before the Pharaoh, that elevated me up to the second in command. And God said, you meant it for my bad. God said, you thought that the problem was going to break me, but the problem made me. And not only did it bless me, it's going to bless other folks. You meant it for my bad, but God meant it for my good. You need to celebrate your enemies. You need to send them love letters, say thank you, because what you tried to do to me only caused me to be elevated in God and bring me to the place where I am today, that I got love in my heart, I got compassion in my heart, I got joy in my heart. You meant it for my bad, but God meant it for my good. You are called to be greater than your problem.